that that platform is implemented. Now, I'm here for three reasons. Number one, as a U.S. Senator, as the father of four and the grandfather of seven, including three kids here in New Hampshire, I am going to do everything that I can to make certain that Donald Trump is not elected President of the United States. And that Hillary Clinton is elected President of the United States. This is the year 2016, and we have come too far in this country to elect a president who objectifies women, who insults women, who brags about his sexual assaults. That is not the president we need in 2016. But I want you also to know, with regard to Mr. Trump, it is not just his attitude toward women. Some people have forgotten that before Mr. Trump was a candidate for president, he was a leader of the so-called birther movement. And what the birther movement was about was nothing less than a racist effort to delegitimize the presidency of Barack Obama, the first African-American president in the United States. And then on top of all of that, he calls our Latino brothers and sisters, people from Mexico, rapists and criminals, and also insults and tries to deny access to the Muslim people of this world. We need a president who brings us together, not divides us up. Second reason I'm here is to make sure that Governor Hassan becomes the next United States Senator from the state of New Hampshire. She has developed an excellent record. We are envious in Vermont that you have the lowest unemployment rate in America. Median family income is going up significantly in New Hampshire. She has accomplished a lot. But it is not only bringing her intelligence and energy to the Senate. The truth of the matter is that control over the United States Senate will probably come down to 1 or 2 votes, and New Hampshire may be the deciding factor. So if you want a political party running the United States Senate that wants to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, that believes that climate change is real, that is going to deal with income and wealth inequality, we need Maggie Hassan in the United States Senate. And the third reason I'm here is not just to support Hillary Clinton and Maggie Hassan. The third reason is maybe the most important, and that is to convey to all of you that while Election Day is enormously important, and we've got to do everything we can in the next week to bring out the vote to see that Clinton and Maggie win, I want you all to understand that the day after the election is also an important day. And that means that the only way we transform this country is when millions of people stand up and fight back and are prepared to take on the billionaire class whose greed is destroying this country. So I don't want you to take from today, well, I got to vote on next Tuesday. Absolutely you do. And I want you also to take it, you got to drag out your friends and your aunts and your uncles and everybody else. But I also want you to understand that the great fear that I have about the future of this country is that we are moving toward an oligarchic form of society. And that means that not just a handful of billionaires control our economy, they are now in the process of purchasing the United States government. Less than 200 wealthy families in this country, as a result of Citizens United, are spending more than half of the dollars being spent in the presidential election. less than 200. Furthermore, in this small state of New Hampshire, millions of dollars have come in to oppose Maggie Hassan from the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, and other very powerful forces. And one of the differentiating differences between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is on the very important issue of Citizens United. Secretary Clinton agrees with me, and I suspect all of you, that if we are going to create a vigorous, vibrant democracy, if we are going to end billionaires' ability to buy elections, we need to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. Now, I know that the issue of campaign finance is not a sexy issue. People are concerned about women's rights and the environment and gay rights and health care and education, all enormously important issues. But if you are concerned about any of those issues and other issues, you must be concerned about the corrupt campaign finance system which now exists. Now, here in New England, we have a funny old idea that democracy means one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And that is why not only have we got to overturn Citizens United, in my view, I speak for myself alone, we've got to move toward public funding of elections. I hope that many of you who are concerned about public policy and public service will give thought to running for office, whether it is school board, city council, President of the United States, or whatever it is. But if you choose to run, I hope you will be able to spend your campaign time talking to your fellow citizens about the important issues and not, as is the case right now, spending the bulk of your time hustling money to put ads on television. So one of the major differences between Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump wants to continue conservative majority on the Supreme Court, which means not only attacks on women's rights and gay rights, but also the continuation of Citizens United. Secretary Clinton told me just a couple of weeks ago that within the first 100 days of her presidency, she will offer a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. And by the way, on this issue of campaign finance, it is not just progressives who are concerned. Vast majority of the American people, conservatives, moderates, progressives, all understand that too many people in this country have fought and died to protect American democracy, to allow the Koch brothers and a handful of billionaires to undermine the heritage of the United States of America. Number two, it's not only campaign finance, it is taking a hard look at what I call a rigged economy. 2 points to be made here. Number one, my Republican colleagues in the Senate, they suffer from a very serious illness. And unlike Mr. Trump, we don't make fun of people who have disabilities. We understand them, and we respect people. But one of their disabilities is the fact that they suffer from amnesia. And amnesia means that they have forgotten the state of the economy 8 years ago today. 8 years ago today, we were losing as a nation the unbelievable number of 800,000 jobs a month, unprecedented since the Great Depression of the 1930s. 8 years ago today, we are in the process of running up a $1.4 trillion deficit, the largest deficit in the history of the United States. 8 years ago today, the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. People were worried they were going to put their credit cards in an ATM machine and nothing would come out, not just in the United States, but around the world. We had 8 years of trickle-down economics under George W. Bush. We are not going back to that disastrous economic approach. But while there is no question that the economy today is much stronger than when President Obama first came into office, there is also no question that for the last 40 years, we have seen some trends in this country that are frightening. And those trends are a shrinking middle class, today having 43 million people living in poverty, and today having in America the most unequal distribution of wealth and income since 1928. And also having the United States having more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. That's the reality. Right now in America, the top 0.1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. I'm not talking about 1%, I'm talking about 0.1%. Right now in America, you got one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owning more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. Right now in America, to our disgrace and shame, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, 20% of our kids living in poverty, while at the same time, over the last 16 years, we have seen a 10-fold increase in the number of billionaires in America, from 51 to 540 billionaires. Middle class shrinking, 43 million living in poverty, and the people on top doing phenomenally well. Now, our job together is to create an economy that works for all people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And what does that mean? Well, let me give you some examples of what it means. I've been running all over this country for the last year and a half talking about a grossly unfair tax system which benefits the wealthy. And in one day, Donald Trump did more to make my point than I did in a year and a half. And what Trump said before the whole country and the world, he said, yeah, I'm a multi-billionaire. Yeah, I got mansions all over the world. Yeah, I've lived in the lap of luxury that most people couldn't even comprehend. But I, Donald Trump, and my fellow billionaires, we don't have to pay any taxes at all because we got the middle class and working families of this country paying taxes. So we've got some bad news for Donald Trump. And that is, not only is he going to lose this election on November 8th, but after that, he and his friends are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. But it is not just Trump and other billionaires. It is large multinational corporations who make billions a year in profit. You know what they do with their profits? They stash them in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and in other tax havens, and they end up paying not a nickel in federal corporate taxes. So we are going to change that as part of creating an economy that works for working families. Well, what else do we have to do? Well, it is not a radical idea to say that in the United States of America today, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. That is not a radical idea. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that you go out, you get a job, you got to earn a living wage, not a starvation wage. Right now, federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. You can do the arithmetic as well as I can. And whether it's $8, $9, $10 times 40 hours a week, People cannot live on that amount of money and certainly cannot take care of children. We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, in my view, $15 an hour. Number two, we need to end the absurdity that in the year 2016, women are making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Pay equity for women, equal pay for equal work. Now, one of the points that I try to make is the ideas that we are talking about are not radical extremist ideas. They are mainstream ideas. Let me give you one example. I think Annie Costa mentioned this. All over the world, whether it is Scandinavia, whether it's Europe, whether it is poor countries around the world, governments understand that when a woman has a baby, she must have the right to stay home with that baby, to nurse that baby, to love that baby, to know that baby, should not be forced to go back to work, as is the case right now in the United States after 1 week or 2 weeks after birth. That is not a family value. Every major country on earth, every single one, guarantees paid family and medical leave except the United States of America. That is an outrage. Together, we are going to change that. "12 weeks paid family and medical leave is, in my view, what we should have. Let me talk about another issue out there. Right now, all of you are aware that we live in a highly competitive global economy. And if our economy is going to do well, if our people are going to have a decent standard of living, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. Truth is, there was once a time 20 or 30 years ago where we did. We had the highest percentage of college graduates of any major country on earth. Today, that is no longer the case. And in fact, the gap between the United States and other countries is growing wider. Today in America, in Vermont and in New Hampshire, you got bright young people who did well in high school, who want to go to college, but are unable to get a college education for one reason, and that is their families lack the income. And then we have an equally disastrous situation where many of you and millions of other people around this country are leaving school deeply in debt. What we have got to understand as a nation, we are not going to make it as a nation unless we encourage people to get all the education they need in a changing economy, changing technology. We have to encourage people, not discourage people. Specifically, what does that mean? What it means is we must make public colleges and universities tuition free. Number two, we have got to address the crisis of high student debt. How many people here have student debt? Okay, what interest rates are you paying? What interest rates?
Now have up a live
5, that's low. What?
for the,
6? 8?
Vice President
Any higher?
nominee, Mike Pence.
Often there are people who pay 10, 12. But right now, you can go out, buy a new car with an interest rate of 1 or 2%. You could probably refinance your home 3 or 4%. People should not be paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates. What Secretary Clinton believes and what I believe is that we must give people the opportunity to refinance their loans, get the lowest interest rates they can, save people huge amounts of money. Furthermore, there is a program that nobody has heard of, typical federal program that no one knows anything about. It's called the National Health Service Corps. Anybody here by any chance heard of it? There we go. I got a few people. And what that program is, a very sensible program, and I fought to greatly expand funding for the program. This is what it says. It says if you are going to medical school, you're going to dental school, you're going to nursing school, you're going to a school for health care, when you graduate, if you are prepared to serve in an underserved area, your debts are forgiven by the federal government. And that program has been responsible in getting doctors and nurses and psychologists and others into medically underserved areas. I think we have to expand that concept. This country today is in desperate need of good teachers, child care workers, people who go into law enforcement. We need to forgive the debt of those people who are willing to get into public service. Now, what I would like people to do, and sometimes it is hard to do given the nature of the media, let me talk about just this campaign and what's going on. There are a lot of people who are, for good reasons, very discouraged about the nature of this campaign, the ugliness of the campaign. You're going to have millions of people who are not going to vote at all. And one of the reasons for it, of many, is that a study just came out, pointed out that the national networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, in the evening news, from January 1st to today of 2016, have devoted all of 32 minutes combined on the evening news to the issues impacting the American people. Virtually all of the discussion is about Hillary Clinton's problems and Donald Trump's problems. Very little discussion about your problems. And our job is to understand that this campaign is not a personality contest. We're not voting for class president of Hanover High School. We are voting for the most powerful person on the planet. And our job is to take a hard look at the issues, see which candidate is stronger on the issues, and I think without hesitancy, on every major issue, Hillary Clinton is far, far superior to Donald Trump. Now, there's one issue where there is, dare I say, a huge difference between Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump. And that is, I sit as a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment and the Energy Committee. And in that capacity over the years, I have heard from scientists all over our country and, in fact, all over the world. And what the scientific community has told us in a virtually unanimous voice is that climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems today in America and around the world, and the situation will only get worse in years to come if we do not have the guts to take on the fossil fuel industry and transform our energy system. I know it is not a radical idea to suggest, although sometimes, given what goes on in the Congress, it may seem to be a radical idea. Hillary Clinton, are you ready for this? Believes in science. I know it's a controversial perspective, but she does. On the other hand, we have the Republican candidate for president, Mr. Trump, who, as you know, is brilliant because everything he does by definition is brilliant. Just ask him. And among his brilliant discoveries, and you know, it's tough, he has to take on the entire scientific community, but he has concluded that climate change is a hoax emanating from China. And I've always been confused why he thought it came from China and not a Muslim country or Mexico or something, but nonetheless, it's a hoax, all right? Well, unfortunately, Mr. Trump's position is not a laughing matter. It is deadly serious. Because what the scientists tell us is if we are not aggressive in transforming our energy system, there will be more drought, more flood, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, more rising sea levels, and what the CIA tells us, obviously there'll be more international conflict because people around the world are going to be fighting over limited natural resources, water, land to grow their crops. So our job is to transform our energy system. in my view, I speak only for myself, to put a tax on carbon. In my view, but Secretary Clinton and I are in absolute agreement that we need to invest very, very heavily in sustainable energies like wind and solar and geothermal. And in energy efficiency. We once led the world in the quality of our rail system. That's no longer the case. We must do that again. And when we invest in energy efficiency and sustainable energy, not only do we help lead the world in combating climate change, we do something else. We create millions of decent paying jobs, and that is what we've got to do. I think all of you know that real change in our country has never occurred from the top on down. It has always been from the bottom on up. Real change only takes place when millions of people are prepared to stand up for social justice, for economic justice, for racial justice. And right now, at this moment, we are in a very, very strange time. And that time is that we have made good progress over the years in becoming a less discriminatory society in terms of racial issues, in terms of sexism, overcoming a lot of sexism, in terms of homophobia, moving forward on gay rights. And we should be proud of the accomplishments that we have made. But there is one area where not only have we not made progress, we are moving in the wrong direction, and that is the economic struggle. I have my doubts as to how a country survives when so few have so much and so many have so little. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most Americans don't know that because they're too busy working 2 or 3 jobs. And what's going on is almost all of that new wealth and income is going to the top 1%. So what I want to say to you all is that we have an enormous amount of work in front of us. There is no reason, no rational reason, why the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. We can change that. Again, this is not a radical idea. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They have had a single-payer healthcare system for the last several decades. It works well. UK, Germany, France, Scandinavia, all guarantee healthcare to all people as a right. They can do it, we can do it. There is no rational economic reason why we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. There are right now, you want to hear crazy? And this is what we need your help in overcoming. Right now, 1 out of 5 Americans who goes to the doctor because they're sick, doctor writes out a prescription, 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford to fill that prescription. Do you appreciate how insane that is? It's insane because what happens to the person who went to the doctor? You're going to get sicker. You're going to end up in the emergency room, which is the most expensive form of primary health care available. And if you don't end up in the emergency room, you may end up in the hospital. This makes 0 sense. But we are taking on a pharmaceutical industry that has hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists in Washington, D.C., that is raising prices for both generics and brand name drugs every single day. People are dying because they can't get that medicine. It is an outrage, and we need your help to tell the pharmaceutical industry, to tell the insurance companies that we need a healthcare system which guarantees healthcare and prescription drugs and dental care to all people, that the function of healthcare is to provide good quality healthcare, not to make billions in profit for the people who own the system. all of these issues, all of these problems, they're not made up in the heavens. They're made by human beings. And human beings can change the system. It doesn't get changed overnight. Ask the people in the trade union movement who have been fighting for 100 years for good wages and benefits. Ask the people in the civil rights movement who have been fighting for God knows how long to end racism and segregation and discrimination in this country. Ask the people in the women's movement. 100 years ago today, women didn't even have the right to vote, let alone go out and get the education or jobs they wanted. But they stood up and they fought back. Ask the people in the gay community how long it took them to finally get gay marriage to be legal in this country. None of these changes took place without millions of people standing up and fighting back. And that is where we are right now. Where we are right now is a handful of billionaires want it all. They control the economy. They want to control our political life as well. We can defeat them, but we cannot defeat them if people say, oh, politics is all crap, I don't want to get involved. We need your energy. And again, we need your energy big time in the next week. We need your energy the day after this election. Think big, not small. Let's defeat Trump. Let's elect Maggie Hassan. Let's elect Secretary Clinton. Let us, most importantly, transform this country. Thank you all very much.
Attention all affiliates, we will momentarily take down the SD4, which had the Bernie Sanders event that's already concluded. That was the one in New Hampshire, in Hanover, New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders, to take the closing bell on SD4. We will momentarily be putting up the slate for the closing bell on SD4.